My name is Helen Carter. I'm 74 years old, a retired schoolteacher from Ohio. I raised 3 children, 2 sons and 1 daughter, mostly on my own after my husband passed away when I was just 49. I've always lived a quiet life. Modest, careful, respectful. I never liked to be in the way. And when my daughter Rachel offered to take me in after a hip surgery left me unable to care for myself for a few months, I thought I was stepping into the safest hands. But I was wrong. It happened on a rainy Tuesday night. The air was thick with humidity, and the thunder rolled like a warning bell. I had just gotten up to use the bathroom when I heard whispering in the hallway outside my door. Pause. First I thought it was the TV. But when I pressed my ear to the wall, the voices became clear. It was Rachel's husband, Damien. And he wasn't alone. He was on the phone. "Tomorrow. We do it tomorrow night," I heard him say, voice low and hurried. "The old woman's insurance is enough to cover our debt and get us out of this mess. You just need to make sure she eats the pills." Got it. My stomach dropped. My knees buckled beneath me. I stood there frozen, hand covering my mouth, my heart pounding so loud I feared he might hear it. Had I heard that right? Was Damien plotting to kill me? I tiptoed back into the room and locked the door, hands shaking, breath shallow. My first instinct was denial. Maybe I misunderstood. Maybe he was talking about someone else. But deep down I knew what I heard. My body knew too. It trembled all over. I didn't have a plan. I didn't have my phone. I didn't even have my wallet. But I had to leave. I quietly opened the window, slid out onto the small ledge, and climbed down using the rain-soaked trellis. I was barefoot. My hospital gown clung to me. My feet landed in mud and I ran. Yes, ran. At 74 down that empty street, toward nowhere, toward survival. I didn't stop until I reached the gas station 3 blocks away. The clerk looked up in shock, but I didn't care how I looked. I begged him for a phone. I called my oldest son, Ben. He picked me up an hour later, wrapped me in a blanket, and didn't ask questions until we got home. But the next morning, everything crumbled for Damien. And not because I told anyone what I heard, but because of what happened next. What could possibly go wrong for Damien the day after Helen fled? And what secret was Helen about to uncover that would turn everything on its head? Stick around. This is just the beginning of a story about betrayal, survival, and quiet revenge. Please like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter. Ben sat me down at his kitchen table, hands wrapped around a steaming mug of tea he made just the way I liked it. Chamomile with honey, not too hot. His wife, Elise, hovered behind him, concern written all over her face. I hadn't even had the chance to explain everything when Ben reached across the table, grabbed my trembling hands and said, "Mom, you're safe now." But what happened? I wanted to tell him everything. I really did. But the words felt too heavy, too dangerous. What if I was wrong? What if I made it worse? Instead I just whispered, "I heard something awful. About Damien." I couldn't stay. Ben didn't press. He nodded slowly like he understood without needing all the details. But Elise. She looked like she already knew something I didn't. That's when Ben's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen then frowned. "It's Rachel," he said. "She's called 3 times. I felt a chill crawl up my spine. "Don't answer," I whispered. But Elise leaned in. "Maybe you should. Just put it on speaker." Ben hesitated then tapped the screen. "Hey, Rach." Rachel's voice came through, frantic and breathless. "Where's Mom? Is she with you?" "Is gone, Ben. Her bed was empty this morning. I don't know where she is. Damien went to check on her and she's just gone." Ben raised an eyebrow at me, but I stayed quiet. Then Rachel's voice dropped. "Ben, things are bad. Damien's missing too. He didn't come home last night. I found his phone in the driveway, screen cracked. I don't know what's happening. Please. Just call me if you hear anything." She hung up before Ben could respond. I stared at the wall, frozen. Damien was missing. Ben slowly turned to me. "Mom, did something happen after you left?" I told you, I said softly. I just ran. But I knew something else was going on. Elise sat down beside me. There's something you should know, she said carefully. We heard some rumors last week. Damien's in trouble. Gambling. Big debts. Dangerous people. I didn't want to worry you, but... Her voice trailed off. That's when the news alert popped up on Ben's phone. Unidentified man found unconscious near Riverwood Bridge. Suspected foul play. No ID, but matching description of Damien Carter. Gasp. Ben tapped the article open. Elise covered her mouth. Could it be him? My mind raced. Had someone else gone after Damien before he could hurt me? Or was this part of something bigger? Later that evening, while Ben took a call from the police, Elise led me to the guest room to rest. I sat on the bed, thinking back to the moment I slipped out the window. And that's when I remembered something strange. Before I fled, I saw Rachel's purse lying on the dresser in the hallway. The zipper was open, and sticking out of the side was a prescription bottle with my name on it. But I had never seen that bottle before. I never needed the pills Rachel claimed I was taking. I thought she was helping me, giving me vitamins. But was she in on it too? I pulled the blanket up to my chin as the weight of betrayal sat on my chest. What if this wasn't just Damien? What if my own daughter had been planning something with him? The next day, Helen decides to visit the pharmacy and get answers about the pills. What she discovers flips everything upside down and points a finger straight at Rachel. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you're following this story. Next chapter is where things start to unravel. The morning sun pierced through the blinds, but I barely felt its warmth. My mind was a storm of questions, none of them comforting. I sat upright in the guest bed, staring at the wallpaper, my hands clenched in my lap. There was something foul beneath the surface of this whole ordeal. Damien may have said the words, but the prescription bottle I remembered seeing, with my name on it, that detail haunted me more. Ben was already downstairs, talking with someone on the phone. I waited until he stepped outside before I leaned into the hallway and found Elise quietly folding towels. Elise, I said, can you take me to a pharmacy? She blinked. Now. I need to know what's been in those pills Rachel gave me. I didn't ask before, but I have to now. Her brow furrowed. You remember the name on the bottle? I don't. But I remember how it looked. Pale blue, white label, and my name in bold. Elise didn't hesitate. She grabbed her keys. Let's go. We drove in silence. The town felt smaller that day, like it was closing in on me. The pharmacy was a quiet, sterile place, but the young man behind the counter smiled politely as Elise helped me explain. Hi, she began. My mother-in-law was staying with her daughter recently, and she's been taking medication we want to confirm. Is it possible to check what's been prescribed under her name? He hesitated. Do you have the bottle? No, I said, but I can give you my full name and date of birth. He nodded and tapped into the computer. After a few moments, his brows rose. Mrs. Helen Carter. According to our records, there are 2 active prescriptions under your name, one for vitamin D and one for muscle relaxant diazepam. Prescribed last month. Diazepam? Ask heart-sinking. I've never taken that before. Who prescribed it? He turned the screen. Dr. Fields. But the script was called in by someone listed as Rachel Carter. Elise turned to me, her face pale. She's not a doctor, I whispered. She's a medical assistant, Elise said softly. But she works for that same clinic. She must have used her access. My knees went weak. Elise guided me to the bench in the waiting area. She had drugged me. The pills I'd been trusting. Rachel had given them to me, telling me they were doctor-approved, good for bone healing to help me sleep. Instead, she had been slowly sedating me. And I never questioned it. 'Cause she was my daughter. Elise held my hand. We have to go to the police. No, I said, my voice suddenly firmer than it had been in days. Not yet. If she wanted to sedate me, if she and Damien were in on this together, then I need to know what the endgame was. Something bigger is happening. As we drove home, Elise's phone buzzed. She answered, listened, then handed it to me. "It's the hospital," she said. "About Damien." I held the phone to my ear, heart racing. "Hello, Mrs. Carter," a nurse asked gently. "We're calling to inform you that the man we brought in from Riverwood Bridge has been identified as Damien Carter. He regained consciousness briefly, and then he began to have seizures. He's in critical condition now." "Seizures?" I asked. "What caused them?" "There's evidence of poisoning," the nurse said. "Not street drugs. Something slow-acting. We're investigating further. We just thought you'd want to know." I nearly dropped the phone. Poisoning. And not the kind Damien gave, but the kind someone may have given him. Could it be Rachel? Could she have turned on him? Was this all part of a deeper plan I'd never imagined? When we got home, Ben was waiting, arms crossed, face tight. He had gotten a call from Rachel, and she was on her way. "See me. She says she needs to explain everything," he said, staring at me. "She sounds desperate. Rachel is on her way, but does she want to explain or cover her tracks? Helen is about to face her daughter for the first time since escaping through that window. And the truth. It's darker than she ever imagined." Like, comment, and subscribe to follow this unraveling storm. Next chapter will leave your jaw on the floor. I sat motionless in the living room, my palms flat on my knees, eyes glued to the front door like it might swallow me whole. Elise stood by the window, arms folded tight across her chest. Ben paced back and forth, chewing his bottom lip like he used to as a child whenever he knew trouble was coming. The house, though warm, felt cold with anticipation. Then we heard the car pull up. Rachel's car. The sound of her heels hitting the walkway was sharp, deliberate. Each step rang in my ears like a countdown. She knocked once, then opened the door without waiting. That alone told me she still believed she had control. Her eyes locked on me. "Mom," she breathed, half relief, half fury. "You're okay. Thank God." I didn't speak. I wanted to hear what version of the story she'd choose. Rachel stepped forward, eyes darting between us. "I've been worried sick. Damien's in the hospital, and you just disappeared in the middle of the night." "I disappeared," I cut in, "because I heard your husband planning to kill me." Her mouth opened, but no words came. "You want to explain that?" I asked calmly. I don't know what you think you heard, but..." "Don't lie," I said. "Don't you dare lie to my face." Ben's voice was low. "Mom told us about the pills. She saw the bottle. You used your position at that clinic to get a prescription for diazepam under her name." Rachel's mask cracked. For just a second I saw something flash in her eyes. Guilt, maybe fear. But just as quickly, she snapped back into her polished self. "It wasn't like that," she said, her voice trembling. "Yes, I helped get her something to help her sleep. She was in pain, Ben, after her surgery. She wasn't resting. I was trying to help." "Then why lie about it?" I asked. She turned toward me, stepping closer. "Because I knew you'd overreact. You've always hated Damien, and I thought if you knew he helped arrange the prescription, you'd never trust it. Elise and I just spoke with the pharmacy. And with your clinic. The pills weren't listed under sleep aid. They were long-term sedatives. You weren't trying to help me rest, Rachel. You were trying to keep me still." Her hands began to tremble. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen." Ben's voice cracked. "Didn't mean for what to happen?" Rachel suddenly burst into tears. She sank onto the couch and covered her face. "I was desperate," she sobbed. "Damien, he owed money to the wrong people. We were drowning. The loan sharks were threatening our daughter. And then he found the policy." Ben froze. "What policy?" Rachel looked up at me, eyes swollen with guilt. "The life insurance policy you took out after Dad died. The one you never canceled. You still had me listed as a beneficiary." My breath hitched. "I didn't even know he was looking at your records. He said if something happened to you, we'd be free. I begged him not to do anything. But then he started talking about making it look natural. About those pills. And I got them. I thought I'd control the dosage. I didn't know he planned to increase them behind my back. My body went cold. I was afraid to tell you. I was afraid to tell anyone. I didn't know he'd go this far. Ben looked devastated. Elise had tears in her eyes. I sat quietly for a moment. Then I asked, "And what about last night? Did you give him something?" She looked confused. "Elise and I just spoke to the hospital. Damien was poisoned, Rachel. Not just drugged, poisoned." Her eyes widened. "I didn't, I would never. But someone did." Just then Ben's phone rang. He answered it quickly, face pale as he listened. Yes, I understand." He hung up. "That was the police," he said, voice tight. "They've confirmed. Damien's toxicology report showed not just sedatives, but digoxin, heart medication in fatal doses. The bottle was found in your bathroom cabinet, Rachel. With your fingerprints." Rachel turned to him, mouth agape. "What? Oh. No, I didn't." "You need a lawyer," Ben said. "Now." Rachel stood slowly. Her eyes darted to me, then to Elise, then back to Ben. "You think I would hurt my own husband?" "I think," I said softly, "you already hurt your own mother." Her face broke. But whether it was sorrow or exposure I couldn't tell. She grabbed her purse and ran out the door. We heard the car screech out of the driveway moments later. And just like that, my daughter became a suspect in an attempted murder. But deep down I wasn't sure if she was guilty. Or if someone else had set her up. As the investigation deepens, Helen uncovers a hidden trail of lies, financial betrayal, and long-held family secrets. And the next person to fall might be someone even closer. What really happened that night before she fled? If you're invested in this unraveling mystery, please like, comment, and subscribe. Next chapter will leave your heart racing. The silence in the house after Rachel fled was deafening. Ben paced with his phone in hand. Elise stared blankly at the wall, and I felt like my heart had been split open. No mother imagines their daughter will look them in the eye and still twist the truth to fit their own comfort. And now, whether Rachel was guilty of poisoning Damien or not, one fact was painfully clear. She had helped sedate me, fully aware of what her husband intended. We waited for news from the hospital, but the next call we received wasn't from them. It was from the police. A detective named Miller asked to meet me privately. Ben offered to come along, but I insisted on going alone. I needed to reclaim a piece of myself to stand on my own 2 feet again, emotionally if not physically. Detective Miller met me at a quiet diner in town, sliding into the booth across from me like a man used to seeing ugly truths. He opened a slim folder, gave me a long look and said, "Mrs. Carter, we've been digging. And it's worse than we thought." I braced myself. Your daughter and her husband were in deep credit card fraud, unpaid loans, a house leveraged twice over. Damien had gambling debts in 3 states. But here's the part that concerns you. He slid a document across the table. It was a life insurance policy. The same one Rachel had mentioned, but with new adjustments. Damien had forged documents to increase the payout amount and list himself as the sole beneficiary, by forging my signature. I nearly choked on my tea. "Is that even legal?" I whispered, my voice shaking. "No. That's why we're looking into federal charges. But here's where it gets more disturbing," he said, flipping the page. We checked Damien's phone. The last call he made before he was found unconscious wasn't to Rachel. It was to someone listed as Lyle, cleanup guy. A burner number. Likely a hired hand. My blood turned cold. So he really was planning to. I couldn't finish. Detective Miller nodded grimly. We think he had a plan in motion. But what he didn't expect was someone turning on him first. I looked down, a knot forming in my chest. "I don't believe my daughter poisoned him," I said softly. "I think she was scared, complicit in keeping me weak, yes. But capable of murder." I shook my head. "No. There's someone else." The detective leaned in. "Do you know anyone else who might want to harm Damien?" My mind wandered to Damien's family. His cousin Vince, who had once cornered me at a barbecue and drunkenly muttered something about getting what's owed. His shady friends who visited when Rachel wasn't home. But no name stood out. Until one memory hit me like a slap. The housekeeper. Meh. Quiet. Timid. Always watching. Rachel had hired her after my surgery. Said she needed help around the house. But something about that girl had always made me feel uneasy. She moved too softly. Always seemed to appear right after Rachel and Damien had one of their whispered arguments. I had once caught her walking out of my room when I was supposed to be asleep. I mentioned her to Miller. He raised an eyebrow. That name came up in Damien's call logs too. Several calls last week. My heart dropped. Could Maya have been more than a housekeeper? Was she Damien's accomplice? Or his insurance plan? I left the diner feeling like I had stepped into a deeper pit of quicksand. The more I tried to climb out, the faster the lies pulled me back in. When I got home, Elise met me at the door. "Ben's upstairs with the kids," she whispered. Rachel called again. "She's asking to come back. She says she's being followed." "Followed?" "Yes." Elise nodded. She sounded terrified. I sat down exhausted. "Did she say by who?" "No. Just that someone's been watching the house, parked on her street every night since Damien was hospitalized. She thinks it's connected to his debts." I stared at the wall, my hands trembling. This web was bigger than any of us realized. And now Rachel, guilty or not, might be in danger. That night I couldn't sleep. At 2 a.m. I got up and went downstairs for some water. And that's when I saw it. A black car parked across the street. Headlights off. Engine running. Just watching. Is Damien's past catching up with Rachel? Or is someone cleaning up loose ends? In the next chapter, Helen follows her instincts straight into danger, and uncovers a truth that threatens to destroy everything she thought she knew. Like, comment, and subscribe if this story has your heart racing. Next chapter will pull you even deeper into the shadows. The car didn't move for hours. I stood in the shadows of the living room, peeking between the curtains like a child afraid of the dark. Except this wasn't childhood fear, this was instinct. The kind that comes from raising 3 kids alone in a rough neighborhood, from surviving widowhood, poverty, and now betrayal. I knew when danger was near. And that car, it wasn't just parked. It was hunting. At 3:17 a.m., the driver's door opened. I held my breath. A man stepped out. Broad shoulders, hooded sweatshirt, gloves. He walked slowly toward the house across the street, but not ours. He peered into the window, waited, then turned and looked directly at my window. I dropped the curtain and backed away. Whoever he was, he knew I was watching. By morning the car was gone. I barely slept a wink, but as soon as daylight broke, I called Detective Miller and told him everything. He promised to look into it. But he also said something that chilled me to the bone. "Helen, these people, whoever Damien got involved with, they don't play games. If he owed them money, and if they think you were about to be a payday that fell through, they might not stop at him. They might come for anyone they think has a piece of that pie. The insurance money. The debt Damien never paid." That's when it clicked. Rachel wasn't just scared. She was the next target. I called Ben into the kitchen. "We need to find Rachel," I said firmly. "Today. She's not safe." Ben didn't even argue. He nodded and grabbed his keys. We called every number we had for her, but she didn't answer. Finally, Elise remembered an old friend of Rachel's, Kira, who worked at the community center. We drove down, hoping for a lead. Kira looked shocked when she saw us. "Rachel was here yesterday," she said. She looked terrible, sunken eyes, no makeup, twitchy. She said she needed a place to stay for a few nights. I offered my guest room, but she left before dinner and never came back. "Did she say where she was going?" I asked, desperate. Kira hesitated. "Only that she needed to visit someone she once trusted. Someone from before Damien." "Before Damien," I whispered. That meant one thing. Her biological father. My ex-husband, Frank. He and Rachel had stayed in touch secretly, even after he walked out on all of us. I hated it, but I understood why. Frank had always been charming, when he wasn't cruel. And Rachel had always longed for someone who would just choose her. We drove straight to his apartment complex on the outskirts of town. Frank answered the door with his usual smirk. Half amusement, half disdain. Well, well. Look who the cat dragged in, he said, stepping aside. She's here, isn't she? Yes. He didn't deny it. Rachel appeared in the hallway, eyes red, clutching a tattered blanket. Mom, she whispered. Ben stepped forward. You're coming home with us. She shook her head. No, you don't understand. I'm being followed. Damien wasn't supposed to talk. He wasn't supposed to survive. Frank's eyes narrowed. Wait, what do you mean? Rachel turned to me slowly. Damien was going to fake my signature. Take the payout. He even talked about leaving the country without me. Said I was just a tool. That's why I started slipping something into his tea. Not poison. Just enough to slow him down. Keep him from moving too fast. I stared at her, horrified. You drugged him too. I didn't want to kill him, she cried. I just needed more time to figure out how to get out. But then he found out. That night. He told me I'd be the one found floating under the bridge. So I ran. Ben looked sick. Frank surprisingly looked furious. He hit her, he said, voice low. She told me everything last night. I may be a bastard, Helen, but I don't let men put their hands on my daughter. Rachel sobbed into his shoulder. And for the first time in 25 years, I felt grateful for the man who once shattered our family. We took Rachel home with us under one condition. She'd tell everything to the police. That afternoon, she sat in front of Detective Miller with trembling hands and confessed. Not to murder but to manipulation. To covering up Damien's crimes. To being part of a plan that almost killed her own mother. But the moment she mentioned Damien's cleanup guy and Maya's name, Miller froze. We've been looking into Maya, he said slowly. And we found something troubling. She's not just a housekeeper. She's connected to a known identity fraud ring. Damien wasn't just committing insurance fraud. He was involved in human trafficking and money laundering. My skin prickled. And then Miller looked at me. Helen. We believe Damien's attack wasn't random. We believe he was silenced by someone tied to that operation. And if that's true. He glanced at Rachel. Your daughter might be next. Now that Helen knows the real stakes, can she protect her daughter from the very men Damien once worked with? Or is it already too late? Like, comment, and subscribe if you're gripped by this emotional storm. Next chapter will drag us into the lion's den. We installed cameras around the house the next morning. Ben changed all the locks. Elise made sure the kids stayed with her parents in another town. And I barely slept. I sat by the window most nights, the same spot where I first saw the black car, now watching shadows for movement, watching corners for secrets. I kept a flashlight in one hand and my late husband's old walking stick in the other. If someone was coming, I wasn't going to let them take me lying down. Rachel stayed in the guest room, barely speaking. She hadn't eaten more than a slice of toast in 2 days. The shame on her face wasn't just about what she'd done. It was about how far she'd fallen without even noticing. On the third morning there was a knock at the door. It wasn't the police. It wasn't a neighbor. It was Maya. Standing there, dressed like she always had. Neat, quiet, plain-faced, eyes unreadable. Elise opened the door halfway. Maya, she said. What are you doing here? I came to see Rachel, she said softly. Just to talk. Rachel stepped into the hallway behind me and froze when she saw her. Maya's face softened. I'm not here to hurt anyone. Please, let me talk to her. No, Ben said firmly. If you have something to say it to all of us. Maya hesitated, then stepped into the doorway. She looked straight at Rachel. I know everything Damien did. I know about the money. The accounts in your name. The men who visited. I know you think he was planning to kill your mother. Rachel's voice cracked. He was. Maya took a deep breath. And I believed it. First. That's why I poisoned his tea. The room spun. I clutched the armrest of the chair. You what? Ben said, his voice hard. I put the digoxin in his cup, Maya said, eyes glistening with tears. It was mine. For my father. He passed 2 years ago. I still had a bottle in my purse. I just wanted it to slow him down, but I didn't know how much I gave him. I panicked when he collapsed. I ran. Rachel was shaking. Why would you do that? Why would you care? Because I used to be like you, Maya whispered. Trusting the wrong man. He destroyed everything in my life. And when I saw how Damien controlled you, how he used your mother like a pawn, I couldn't watch it happen again. Could barely breathe. All of this pain, all of this chaos, born from secrets piled on top of more secrets. But Maya wasn't done. There's something else, she said, pulling a flash drive from her pocket. Damien kept files. He recorded everything. Audio, photos, documents, backup plans, insurance, just in case he ever needed leverage. I made copies the night before he collapsed. Ben stepped forward. Why come to us now? Because the men Damien worked with know I have this. They followed me here yesterday. I saw the car across the street. I'm not just here to help. I'm here because I don't know where else to go. I stood up slowly, my joints aching but my mind suddenly sharp. If this drive has what you say it does, I said, then it's not just your life or Rachel's at stake. It's yours too, Mrs. Carter, she said. Because that insurance policy Damien forged. The real beneficiaries weren't even Rachel or himself anymore. He had it routed to an offshore account. One tied to a name. Helen Carter International Outreach Fund. He used your name to launder it. Gasp. He had stolen my name, my identity, wrapped it in lies and fed it to criminals. Detective Miller came that evening after Ben called. He took the flash drive and promised to escalate the case to federal investigators. He also gave us one grim update. The man who visited Damien in the hospital posing as a nurse. He's missing. Security footage shows he entered the building with fake credentials and disappeared 2 hours later. We believe he was sent to finish the job, but Damien's condition worsened before he could get to him. Finish the job? Yes. He nodded. Whoever is behind this, they don't want Damien talking. And if Maya's right, they'll come for the rest of you. Rachel sank to the floor. And I did something I never imagined. I sat next to her, pulled her into my arms and whispered, You did a terrible thing. But you're still my daughter. And I will protect you if it's the last thing I do. Because mothers don't stop loving their children. Not even when their children lose themselves. That night, we were moved to a safe house under federal protection. But just when I thought we were one step ahead, the headlines rolled in. Damien Carter escapes from hospital during power outage. Manhunt underway. He was gone. Damien is out, possibly injured, but more dangerous than ever. And Helen knows if he comes back, he's not coming alone. What happens when a mother must face the very man who tried to erase her? Like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss the storm that's coming in the next chapter. The truth is about to strike back. The safe house was quiet, too quiet. We were somewhere outside of Columbus, tucked into a rural property owned by the state, surrounded by trees and silence. Inside everything was clean but bare. No family photos, no memories, just walls and tension. Rachel barely spoke. Maya slept with the lights on. I kept a chair wedged against the front door at night, not because I didn't trust the locks, but because I no longer trusted the world. When the news broke that Damien had escaped, my body went cold. Even from a hospital bed, Damien found a way to disappear. The power outage that night wasn't a coincidence. It was engineered. A man like him didn't just walk out. He was pulled out. And we knew what that meant. He was coming for the flash drive. For Maya. For me. Detective Miller visited the next morning. His face was drawn and tense. We think Damien is on the move toward one of the cabins he used to rent out west of the city. A place his cousin Vince owned. We've got agents sweeping the area. But Helen, he looked directly at me. You're not safe. Chuckled dryly. Safe hasn't been an option for a long time, detective. He nodded solemnly. I'm doubling your protection detail. But protection or not, I could feel Damien breathing down my neck. Like a predator stalking just outside the frame. Rachel finally cracked that evening. She sat next to me on the couch, wringing her hands. I was going to tell you, she said softly. That night. I was going to tell you everything. But you didn't, I said. She looked down. I was afraid. You always made everything look easy. Even after Dad left. Even after the bills piled up. I watched you hold everything together. And then I looked at my own life. Married to a liar, a coward, and I hated myself. I hated that I let him hurt you. I studied her face, aged by stress and regret. My daughter was still in there, somewhere beneath the ruin. I don't need you to be perfect, Rachel, I said. I just need you to be brave now. I will be, she whispered. But if Damien comes back. He will come back, I interrupted. That's why we have to finish this before he gets the chance. The next morning a call came in from Miller. We found the cabin, he said. But it's empty. Recently used. Fresh tire tracks, cigarette butts, and Helen, he left something. What? Your photo. Folded and burned at the edges. It was nailed to the wall. My stomach twisted. Damien wasn't hiding. He was hunting. That night, around 11:45 p.m., Maya's phone rang. Unknown number. She didn't answer. 10 minutes later, the front door rattled. My heart stopped. Ben, who was staying in the next room, rushed to my side. Elise took the kids to the back. The agent stationed outside radioed in. But by the time they got to the porch, no one was there. But they left something. Box. Unmarked. No return address. Just sitting on the doorstep like a ghost. The bomb squad cleared it. Inside was a single item. Damien's wedding ring, snapped in half. And a note. If I can't have my legacy, nobody will. The agent said it was a threat. I knew better. It was a declaration of war. And we had to strike first. Maya pulled me aside later, her voice trembling. I know where the offshore account is, she said. He kept the details on a hidden server. But I can access it if I go in person. That's suicide, I told her. Maybe, she said. But if I can withdraw the funds and freeze the line, we can stop him. We cut off the money, we cut off his power. I looked at Rachel. Then at Maya. Two broken women. Both trying to fix the destruction Damien left behind. I made a decision. We go together. Early the next morning, with clearance from federal agents and backup coordinated through Miller, we made our way to the old building in Dayton where Damien kept his tech gear. A dusty storage office, rented under a fake name. Maya led us through the access codes. The door opened. Inside, dozens of hard drives. Notebooks. We started copying files. And then, the lights cut out. The hum of the server died. Ben shouted from the hallway. We're not alone. Gunfire erupted outside. Agents shouted. Glass shattered. And through the chaos I heard it. Damien's voice. You should have stayed asleep, Helen. The standoff has begun. Will Helen, Rachel, and Maya survive the final assault? Or will Damien finally get what he came for? Please like, comment, and subscribe. Next chapter will explode with truth, fire, and final choices. The room went black, and my blood ran colder than it ever had before. Screams echoed from outside the storage office as agents shouted over gunfire. I grabbed Rachel by the wrist and pulled her to the floor. Maya dropped behind a desk, clutching the portable hard drive like it was her lifeline. The stench of sweat, dust, and danger filled the air. Sirens wailed faintly in the distance. Someone had called for backup, but I knew in my bones. We didn't have that kind of time. Damien's voice slithered in again, this time from behind the wall. You think you can steal from me, Helen? You think you can erase me? I covered Rachel's mouth as she began to cry. Not now, I whispered. You have to be strong now. Maya crawled over and pressed the hard drive into my palm. It's all in here. His offshore accounts, his messages, his connections. If we get this out, we end him. But we have to get out first, I hissed. A window shattered behind us. Damien had broken in. I turned in time to see the silhouette of a man creeping through the glass. He was thinner than before, ragged, bleeding from a shoulder wound, but his eyes, those eyes, were wild. He looked at me like a butcher looks at the final cut of meat. I trusted you, Helen, he snarled. I brought you into our home. You ungrateful ancient hag. You were supposed to die peacefully. Now look what you've done. I rose to my feet, every inch of me trembling. But not with fear, with fury. You used my daughter, I said, voice low and even. You stole my name, my life, and you tried to bury me with kindness and lies. You think this makes you powerful. You're nothing but a scared little boy in a man's body. His eyes twitched. I should have finished the job when I had the chance. You never had the guts, I said. His hand twitched toward his coat, reaching for a weapon. But before he could draw it, Rachel, my Rachel, stepped out from behind me and smashed a fire extinguisher across his back. Damien collapsed with a grunt. We didn't wait. Ben burst through the side door with 2 agents behind him. They tackled Damien to the floor, cuffing him as he thrashed and screamed. It's over, one agent shouted. We've got him. Maya clutched my arm, trembling. We did it. But something still didn't sit right with me. Why would Damien come alone? Why would a man that calculated walk into a trap? And then I remembered the flash drive. Maya, I said slowly, did you copy the files or move them? She blinked. Copy. Why? Because right then, a message popped up on the storage room's computer screen. A red alert flashing like a heartbeat. Purge in progress. 89%. Oh my God, I whispered. It's deleting everything. Damien had triggered a failsafe. I shoved the flash drive into Maya's hand. Run. Get this to Miller now. She bolted with the agent escort. Ben and I stood over Damien as he was loaded into a squad car. He looked up at me one last time, blood running down his face. You didn't win, he hissed. I leaned in close. No, but I survived. That's what scares you. Rachel walked up beside me, her face pale but firm. I'm done hiding, she said. I'll testify. Against everything, him, the fraud, the abuse. I won't be silent anymore. And I believed her. For the first time in years, I saw strength in her. Not the kind I tried to give her, but the kind she had to earn on her own. That night, we returned to the safe house. Maya handed the flash drive over to federal investigators. Damien was behind bars, denied bail, facing a mountain of charges that stretched from identity theft to attempted murder and conspiracy to launder criminal funds. But that wasn't the end. Because a week later, something arrived in the mail. Letter. No return address. Inside, a single note. You stopped one man. But the ones behind him are still hungry. And taped to the paper was a photo of me leaving the courthouse. Damien is gone. But something bigger is still watching. In Chapter 10, Helen takes one final stand. Not just for herself, but for every woman who's ever been used, silenced, or betrayed. The conclusion will break your heart and stitch it back together. Like, comment, and subscribe. The grand finale is coming. And it's unforgettable. They say justice is a finish line. But I've learned it's just a checkpoint. One that only means the first predator has been caged, while others circle in the dark. The letter haunted me. Not just because someone had photographed me without my knowledge, but because I recognized the paper it was written on. Glossy. Custom printed. The same kind Damien used for his blackmail letters. That meant someone close to him, or to us, had picked up where he left off. Rachel was shaken when I showed her. He said there were others, she whispered, holding the photo with trembling hands. He said there were people behind the money. The fake charities. Even the clinic I worked at. Some of the higher-ups were laundering cash and using stolen identities. Maya, now under FBI protection, had confirmed similar things from the data she'd extracted before the server wipe. Damien was a pawn, but a valuable one. And with him gone, someone out there wanted to tie off the loose ends. And I was a very loose end. Detective Miller paid us one final visit. His eyes were tired, his tie was loose, and he looked like a man who'd seen too much in too little time. "I'm going to be honest, Helen," he said as we sat in our living room once again. "This case isn't closed. Not by a long shot. Damien's arrest triggered a domino effect. Accounts were frozen, shell companies collapsed. But we uncovered over 17 aliases tied to your name alone. You weren't just a victim. You were the mask they wore to steal from others." My chest tightened. "Can I ever get my name back?" "We'll fight for it," he promised. "But there's something else you should know." He handed me an envelope. Inside were documents. Deeds, old contracts, fake loan approvals. One signature stood out. Rachel's. Forged. Repeated. Layered into hundreds of documents across 4 states. I looked up at her, tears forming in my eyes. "You said Damien forged everything." She sank into the couch like her bones had disappeared. "I helped him at first," she whispered. "Before I knew what he was really doing. He told me it was temporary. That it was just to get us out of debt. I didn't realize he was using my access to steal from you." My body wanted to break. But something inside me refused. I stood slowly, walked to the window, and took a long breath. "I forgive you," I said softly. She looked up, startled. "You what?" "I forgive you," I repeated. "Not because what you did wasn't wrong. But because I'm not going to carry your guilt for the rest of my life." "But I destroyed everything." "No," I said. "He tried to destroy everything. You were just another woman he bent. You have the chance now to stand up. To build something real. You make it up to me, not with words but with your life. Every choice you make from now on. That's the apology I'll accept." She began to sob. And I didn't stop her. She needed to fall apart. To burn. Because sometimes, ashes are the only way something stronger can rise. Over the next few months, the FBI made more arrests. Several clinics and shell organizations were shut down. My identity was slowly restored. I even received a letter of apology from a senator's office after they confirmed their campaign donations had unknowingly come from Damien's laundering circle. Maya disappeared into witness protection. The flash drive she salvaged led to over 30 indictments. Rachel took a job at a women's shelter. She didn't ask for praise. She just worked, quietly, tearfully, humbly. Ben and Elise helped me buy a small home on the edge of town. Nothing fancy. But the garden is mine, and the sun pours in every morning like forgiveness. Then, one afternoon I received another letter. This one handwritten. From Damien. "Helen. You were supposed to be the easiest one to get rid of. Quiet one. The harmless old woman. I see now I underestimated the most dangerous kind of person. The one who's been hurt before but lived to tell the story. They're coming for me now. People I once served. I thought about naming names. But what would that do? They'll always be more powerful than me. But you were never afraid of power. That's what broke me. Tell Rachel I wish I had loved her better. But I loved control more. Goodbye. D. 3 weeks later, Damien was found dead in his cell. Suicide. Or at least that's what the report claimed. But I didn't believe it. And honestly I didn't care. Because this story wasn't about Damien anymore. It was about me. It was about what happens when a woman, any woman, refuses to die quietly in someone else's narrative. When she decides to climb out the window at midnight and take her power back. When she stops asking for love that hurts, and instead, builds a life where peace has room to grow. I tend to my garden every morning now. And every time the breeze touches my cheek, I remember that night I ran barefoot through the rain, bleeding and scared but free. That was the moment I started living again. And if you're listening, if you're out there feeling broken or forgotten, Please remember this. No one writes your ending but you. If this story moved you, if it reminded you of someone strong, someone real, please like, comment, and subscribe. Your voice matters. Your story matters. And you are not alone.